From Santa Fe, New Mexico, September 1999. Smoke signals. Smoke signals from the southwest rise through the morning pines and yellowing aspens, sending blue clouds and signs of life into the high desert sky. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to show 189, coming to you live from the sometime sea-smoked coast of Rhode Island. This is your poet and guiding spirit in the poetosphere, Colin Goedecke, a voice here and elsewhere for living our days more fully, more alively, more poetically. Last week's broadcast was Finding Your Wellsprings, the things that fill you with well-being, the sources of joy, ease, peace, harmony, balance, wholeness, wonder, beauty, humanity, possibility, to be found inside you and around you, in nature especially, and other fountaining places, in nourishing relationships, and deeply satisfying experiences, and oases of heartfulness, spirit, imagination. There's a wealth of well springs for us to seek out, bring ourselves to, and drink from, often and across the seasons of our lives, to keep us fresh and replenished, vibrant and vivid, emotionally and deeply hydrated. What could be more essential in these times than this? I said that last week, and I'll say it again here tonight. What could be more essential than finding our well springs? This week, smoke signals. Taking in all kinds of smoke, and what they signal or represent or conjure up for us and others, from the Native Americans and other indigenous peoples back in time, using them to communicate, to smoke rising from a chimney or from a ship smokestack on the horizon, to what becomes visible after a great fire, literal or metaphorical, when the smoke clears. Out to sea smoke, the frost smoke, steam fog that forms over the sea. And yes, to your own forms of smoke signals. So I've created a broadcast for all of us around this theme, a custom blend of cultural commentary, poetry, quotes, anecdotes, and more. Let's make our way into the signs, signals, and smoke-infused sharings together, and see what we experience, what we discover. Let's begin in Italy, in the Tuscan countryside. At the Villa Il Buon Riposo, in Brunetta, October 1998. Tramonto del sole, sunset. A tractor flickers and ziggurats across a terraced line like a far-off firefly. A stream of milk smoke pours up behind a screen of junipers. Shadows fill the spaces in a forest of spreading pines. Furled cypresses gather round an ochre villa. The grapevines on a close-shaved hillside are combed into neat yellow-green rows between bands of russet earth. Blue-bottomed clouds mirror the contours of soft-shouldered mountains and the calls of small birds piccolo through the arriving quiet. Tramonto del sole. Elizabeth Howell has this poem, Smoke at Night. Smoke stood with his feet in the chimney pot, playing at pantomime, he being in white and the night faint blue. He bowed, twirled, doubled over, flowing across the roof like a cascade of water. Then he rose, stood straight and slim, so that the wind blew his white garments in sheet ghosts smoothly over the ragged roofs. Again he was doubling over, this time so sharply he had to cling with his toes or slip away altogether. But he regained his poise, and rose laughing, and twirled until he was tired. Then, sitting on the edge of the chimney, philosopher fashion, he thought, I am not so very unlike man, since we both flow from the heart of fire through earthen vessels. And springing up, with a laugh, he twirled once more, and with a wave of his long thin hand, flung his fate to the stars, and vanished. Lovely. Thank you, Elizabeth Howell. New poet and poem tonight for me and us here. Well, I was thinking, of course, of man and nature, as we were just talking about there a moment ago. Sean Pittard, Pittard, from his book of poems, Standing in the River, The Silver Fish. I killed a great silver fish, cut him open with a long, thin knife. The river carried his heart away. I took his dead eyes home. His red flesh sang to me on the fire I built in my backyard. His taste was the lost memory of my wildness. Behind amber clouds of cedar smoke, Orion drew his bow. A black moon rose from the night's dark waters, a sliver of its bright face reflecting back into the universe. Thank you. Sean Pittard, The Silver Fish. It's one of mine from the Yucatan coast, Mexico, Punta Bete, February 2002. El Hachero, the torchbearer. Just as dark blankets day, a phantom figure with a flame appears and begins to light the braziers lying low along the sandy paths of flickering palms leading through and from Kailum, then just as phantomly disappears down the winding way with a smoking torch and still secret form. El Hachero. From my poetorial, Ultramarine, which you can find on my site, thepoetorialist.com. There are various ones, some for the Olympics, one for the America's Cup. This is from that one, from the 2017 America's Cup, a cultural contribution to that in my role as Poet Laureate of the Truce Foundation of the United States, where I am still honored to serve, keep serving, and may well be involved in the Paris Olympics this coming spring. We shall see. That's the plan. But this is from Ultramarine, and this poem is Billowing. Clouds, of course, constables, Van Goghs, and tempest-tossed waves, buildings in flames high over Dalmatians' heads, wild west-crossing steam engines sending up the white man's smoke signals, curtains on a breeze-swept terrace, the white sails of a schooner singing downwind, the imagination billowing. From the South Fork of Long Island, 1 May, back in 2001, from East Hampton, New York, the Blue Board. 5 flying machines chalk a message on the sky blue board, writing for earthbound eyes a message the wind soon blurs into soft white smoke, like seawater smoothing sand. From Wikipedia on smoke signals, one of the oldest forms of long-distance communication, a form of visual communication used over a long distance. In general, the signals are used to transmit news, signal danger, or to gather people to a common area. In ancient China, soldiers along the Great Wall sent smoke signals on its beacon towers to warn one another of enemy invasion. The color of the smoke communicated the size of the invading party. In ancient Sri Lanka, soldiers stationed on the mountain peaks would alert each other of impending enemy attack by signaling from peak to peak. In this way, they were able to transmit a message to the king in just a few hours. And North American indigenous peoples also communicated via smoke signal. Each tribe had its own signaling system and understanding. A signaler started a fire on an elevation, typically using damp grass, which would cause a column of smoke to rise. The grass would be taken off as it dried, and another bundle would be placed on the fire. Reputedly, the location of the smoke along the incline conveyed a meaning. If it came from halfway up the hill, this would signify all was well, but from the top of the hill, it would signify danger. Smoke signals remain in use today. The College of Cardinals in Rome use smoke signals to indicate the selection of a new pope during a papal conclave. Yes. Well, I was also wondering about smoke-related rituals, like smudging. So, and this is from stylerituals.com, called Burning Etiquette, Sacred Smoke Practice, Why We Light Up. Plants are living beings that need to be respected and not used in a wasteful manner. Burning sacred herbs dates back to prehistoric times, and their use has been documented in every corner of the world by our collective ancestors. Whether you practice indigenous rituals like Scottish folk magic with seining, or the Native American tradition of smudging, or perhaps faith-based practices like the Christian tradition of burning herbs in a church thurible, or lighting incense for a Hindu puja. Tomato, everyone has a way of burning herbs passed down from their ancestors or that resonates with their personal spiritual practice. We have been ritualizing smoke as far back as our ancestors in ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt, who used burning rituals to contact the dead. Burn tip: please make sure to only utilize what you need. Example, instead of igniting a large sage wand to clear a tiny space, I recommend removing one sprig from the bundle to do the work. A little can go a long way. And then she has all different kinds of things that can be burned: chamomile, cedar. I'll just read you the blue lotus flower. I am blossoming mantra. The bloom effect. In ancient Egypt, blue lotus, also known as the dreaming flower, was burned as a sacred offering to the goddess. It attracts good fortune, taps intuition, and produces feelings of euphoria, also known as blue water lily and the sacred lily of the Nile. So there's more on that at Style Rituals, Burning Etiquette, if you are interested. And then we have the smoke of steamboats and steamships. I love all of those things. Funneling out in history and film and literature. Wasn't around for all those times. I would have liked to have been, actually, just to behold them, maybe ride on some of them. But here's a little something from steamboats.org. The smokestacks. They're some of the most popular characteristics of the steamboats. In old times, when the boats still ran with coal or wood, the smoking stacks could already be seen from far distances, so the people waiting at the next landing knew very early when the steamboat would come. But of course, this was not the reason why the stacks were rising that high in the sky. Steamboats that did the transportation of cotton had to be very careful to prevent the cotton and the whole boat from burning down, so the sparking of the fire had to be kept as far away as possible from the cotton. About that, I did not know that. I also found something interesting here for us from the business of migration. This was on funnels, also called smokestacks. Did migrant passengers care how many a ship had? According to a number of historians, immigrant passengers, quote, attached considerable significance to the matter of funnels, the number of them in particular. Somehow, to their minds, this was directly related to the power and reliability of the ship. 2 stacks were better than 1, 3 even more attractive, and 4 the very acme of marine dependability. How about that? There was also an older piece from 1975 from the New York Times, well-stacked liners on Wayne at port here. The days of well-stacked liners in the port are numbered. An intriguing array of smokestacks and funnels in all shapes and numbers have been part of the local marine scene since 1819, when the Savannah The first steamship to cross the Atlantic entered service. Local shipping buffs have been treated to one 5-stacker, multiple 4-stackers, and innumerable liners with 3 funnels. But with the disappearance from the port of the 2 Italian line superliners, the Raffaello and the Michelangelo, distinguished by 2 tall lattice-enclosed funnels, the port will be reduced to 2 2-stackers, the Swedish-American line cruise ships Kungsholm and Gripsholm. In recent years, as a result of technological change, several no-stackers are also a regular part of the port's marine environment. So farewell to them, except in movies, of course. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about next. I thought of 2, because I love connecting old films, as some of you know, to our themes when I can, and thought of 2 films in particular, vintage ones, one from 1935, the other from 1942. And from 35 is China Seas. This is from Wikipedia. 1935, American adventure film starring Clark Gable as a brave sea captain and Jean Harlow as his brassy paramour, and Wallace Beery as a suspect character. It was a lavish MGM epic. You might enjoy it if you've never seen it. And then the other is Across the Pacific. This is very interesting for different reasons. It's an American spy film set on the eve of the entry of the U.S. into World War II. It was first directed by John Huston. It stars Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor. I still have a thing for her. She was wonderful. And Sidney Greenstreet. Despite the title, the action never progresses across the Pacific, concluding in Panama. The original script portrayed an attempt to avert a Japanese plan to invade Pearl Harbor. When the real-life attack on Pearl Harbor occurred, production, which was going on, was shut down for 3 months and resumed on March 2nd, 1942, with a revised script changing the target to Panama. How fascinating is that? It's quite a corker of a film. Yeah, great characters, a lot of fun, interesting. Okay, a little water to quell the smoke. I don't know if that puts smoke out. It puts fire out. Maybe it doesn't put the smoke out directly. I wrote this piece in November of 2001 in New York City, but it was inspired by a beautiful, to me, box of matches, wooden matches, that I acquired on one of my trips to the Netherlands, to Amsterdam. I just couldn't get over. I was fascinated by the box and the drawings on it. Meditation on a matchbox. Sailing open-eyed since 1899 across an eternally orange sunset, a single blue swallow scissors a scroll of Zwalu with its tail and dips the fringe of its blue wings over 4 gold coins and 45 hidden lucifers waiting to strike and let loose their sulphurous smoke and spontaneous flame. I still have that matchbox, and I do meditate on it from now and again. Well, how about fireworks? This was July 4th in Morristown, New Jersey, old colonial town, 2016. Let the fireworks begin. The star showers, the wild flowerings, the palm trees and peonies, dahlias, chrysanthemums of high-flying light, the waterfalls of sparks, colors, the bright night burnings embering down into dark, the flashes and shimmers of earth-flung comets, bracelets, diadems, the rocketing arcs you follow with wide-open eyes, almost held breath, till you oh and ah from the outbursts of silver and gold, emerald, rose, rare blue. Feel the ensuing booms reverberate in your belly as you lie face to sky on a widespread blanket, easy and cozy with friends. And savor all amid the dangling spangles and whizzing, crackling, whistling sounds with innocent wonder. Through the last fanfare, the blazing, rousing finale, the applause, the drifting clouds of smoke and contented crowds. Yes, it always takes me right back to that kind of setting. Well, all right, dear listeners, questions about smoke signals. I do have them for you, for each of you. Maybe not as many as in other broadcasts, but a handful. What different kinds of smoke signals have you seen or experienced that conveyed something to you in thought or heart or another sensed or felt place? What kinds might you become more aware of after this show? Putting the broadcast together triggered a favorite boyhood memory of my father sitting in his favorite armchair in the living room, smoking a cigar and blowing big, beautiful, perfect white smoke rings, big floating O's into the air. Well, that was so magical to me. And they were clearly signals of his contentment and playfulness. Yeah, good memory. What kinds of wordless smoke signals have you sent in your life to one or more people? How did you do it? How did it work? What happened as a result? What about smoke screens? Have you created any? Hidden behind any? Removed or cut through any to get to the heart of some matter, to some real story? Have you ever seen a beekeeper use a smoke pot on a hive to calm down honeybees? I did that with a friend decades back in Bel Air, California, also wearing all the garb, the hat, and the face mesh and long gloves. It was very exciting, and watched him with the smoker. What types of smokiness do you love? Maybe a good wood fire, or a smoky, peaty single malt whiskey, or a pipe or fine cigar. Maybe the smoke from smudging, from burning sage or Palo Santo or something else. Or smoked salmon whetting your appetite. Or meditating on wood smoke lazing out from a campfire under the stars. Or feeling warmed or charmed by smoke pluming from a chimney in your neighborhood, or seen on a cold night as you travel through a spread-out countryside. So, some questions and musings you may want to continue later. And whatever else arises as you contemplate what smoke conveys to you in passing or potent, pleasant, or piquant ways. Yeah. Ofelia Zepeda, from her collection Where Clouds Are Formed. Smoke in our hair. The scent of burning wood holds the strongest memory. Mesquite, cedar, pinon, juniper, all are distinct. Mesquite is dry desert air and mild winter. Cedar and pinon are colder places. Winter air in our hair is pulled away, and scent of smoke settles in its place. We walk around the rest of the day with the aroma resting on our shoulders. The sweet smell holds the strongest memory. We stand around the fire. The sound of the crackle of wood and spark is ephemeral. Smoke, like memories, permeates our hair, our clothing, our layers of skin. The smoke travels deep to the seat of memory. We walk away from the fire. No matter how far we walk, we carry this scent with us. New York City, France, Germany, we catch the scent of burning wood. We are brought home. Thank you. Ofelia Zepeda, Smoke in Our Hair. Lovely. Another new piece to me. And poet. How about on the road, in a way, through the landscape? This is Oliver de la Paz. How I Learned Bliss. I spied everything. The North Dakota license, the baby on board signs, dead raccoons and deer carcasses, the Garfields clinging to car windows, the musky traces of old coffee. I was single-minded in the buzzsaw tour I took through the flatlands of the country to get home. I just wanted to get there. Never mind the antecedent. I had lost stations miles ago and was living on cassettes and caffeine. Ahead, brushstrokes of smoke from annual fires. Only ahead to the last days of summer and to the dying theme of youth. How pitch-perfect the tire-on-shoulder sound was to mask the hiss of the tape deck ribbons. Everything. perfect, as Wyoming collapses over the car like a wave. And then another mile marker. Another. How can I say this more clearly? It was like opening a heavy book, letting the pages feather themselves, and finding a dried flower. Thank you, Oliver de la Paz. How I Learned Bliss. This next was a poem. I composed it in New York City in June of 2013, but it was a poem for the father of a dear friend of mine, very much alive dear friend, and it was a toast and a bon voyage to him and to my best memory of him that I wanted to, I suppose, capture more permanently in a way, hence a poem. This is for the passing of Bruto Reed. Hail and farewell. To that great Gatsby gent I first met on a dark lawn cooled with night air and starlight, standing, savoring the fine evening with a blue-pluming cigarette and smoking jacket, savoring his country kingdom. To that old-school gent, sailed off now into those stars, into a greater lightness, into a greater peacefulness. Love out to my friend and out to the ether, to Bruto Reed and the cosmos. Yes, maybe still smoking those blue-pluming cigarettes somewhere, celestially. Philip Levine is a poet I'm quite fond of, very different than others, I would say. He's not around now. Wish he was. I'd love to talk with him live. But I was musing on the memories of smoke of different kinds, what those can conjure for people, what memories they can conjure. And I came across this piece of his called Smoke. Another sip. Can you imagine the air filled with smoke? It was. The city was vanishing before noon, or it was earlier than that. I can't say because the light came from nowhere and went nowhere. This was years ago, before you were born, before your parents met in a bus station downtown. She'd come on Friday after work all the way from Toledo, and he'd dressed only in his only suit. Back then, we called this a date, sometimes a blind date, though they'd written back and forth for weeks. What actually took place is now lost. It's become part of the mythology of a family, the stories told by children around the dinner table. No, they aren't dead. They're just treated that way, as objects turned one way and then another to catch the light overflowing with smoke. Go back to the beginning, you insist. Why is the air filled with smoke? Simple. We had work. Work was something that thrived on fire, that without fire couldn't catch its breath or hang on for life. We came out into the morning air, Bernie, Stash, Williams, and I. It was late March. A new war was starting up in Asia, or closer to home, one that meant to kill us. But for a moment the air still held still in the gray poplars and elms, undoing their branches. I understood the moon for the very first time, why it came and went, why it wasn't there that day to greet the four of us. Before the bus came, a small black bird settled on the curb, fearless or hurt, and turned its beak up as though questioning the day. A baby crow, someone said. Your father knelt down on the wet cement, his lunchbox balanced on one knee, and stared quietly for a long time. A grackle far from home, he said. One of the four of us mentioned tenderness, a word I wasn't used to, so it wasn't me. The bus must have arrived. I'm not there today. The windows were soiled. We swayed this way and that over the railroad tracks across Woodward Avenue, heading west, just like the sun, hidden in smoke. Thank you, Philip Levine. Thank you for that. River by Ginger Murchison. Late afternoons, we'd tuck up our hems under Manisa Bridge, scrape our white knees on scrub brush and drowned trees to slide down the dirt bank past milkweed gone to seed, cattails and trash, to sit on stones at the edge of the river and giggle and smoke, waiting to wolf whistle North High's rowing team. In the shadows where the milk chocolate river unfolded, ooze between our toes, we'd strip, risk long-legged insects, leeches, and mothers for the silt slick on our thighs, the air thick with the smell of honeysuckle, mud. The rest of the day somewhere downstream. We didn't know why, but none of us wanted to go home to polite kitchens and mothers patiently waiting for what happened next, the way women have always waited for hunter husbands, kept vigils, and prayed at the entrance of mines. River. Thank you, Ginger Murchison, from her collection, A Scrap of Linen, a Bone. I had one I was going to read next, but I think I'll save that in the interest of keeping good time with us. But I'll point you to it. It's by Orlando Ricardo Menes, Altar Boy. You could find that at poetryfoundation.org. It's a good piece. Yeah. So I'm going to save that because I want to read a slightly longer piece by Gary Snyder, Through the Smoke Hole, and he's dedicated this to Don Allen. There is another world above this one, or outside of this one. The way to it is through the smoke of this one, and the hole that smoke goes through. The latter is the way through the smoke hole. The latter holds up, some say, the world above. It might have been a tree or pole. I think it is merely a way. Fire is at the foot of the ladder. The fire is in the center. The walls are round. There is also another world below or inside this one. The way there is down through smoke. It is not necessary to think of a series. Raven and magpie do not need the ladder. They fly through the smoke hole, shrieking and stealing. Coyote falls through. We recognize him only as a clumsy relative, a father in old clothes we don't wish to see with our friends. It is possible to cultivate the fields of our own world without much thought for the others. When men emerge from below, we see them as the masked dancers of our magic dreams. When men disappear down, we see them as plain men going somewhere else. When men disappear up, we see them as great heroes shining through the smoke. When men come back from above, they fall through and tumble. We don't really know them. Coyote, as mentioned before. Out of the kiva come masked dancers or plain men. Plain men go into the ground. Outside, all the chores, wood and water, dirt, wind, the view across the flat, here in the round, no corners. Head is full of magic figures. Woman, your secrets aren't my secrets. What I can't say, I won't. Walk round, put my hand flat down. You in the round too, gourd, vine, blossom. Walls and houses drawn up from the same soft soil. 30 million years gone, drifting sand. Cool rooms, pink stone, worn down, fort floor, slat sighting, heat shine on Jumna River, dry wash, truck tracks in the riverbed, coiled sand, pinon. Sea bottom, riverbank, sand dunes, the floor of a sea once again. Human fertilizer, underground water tunnels, skinny dirt gods, grandmother berries, out through the smoke hole. For childhood and youth are vanity. A Permian reef of algae out through the smoke hole. Swallowed sand, salt, mud, swum bodies, flap to the limestone blanket. Lizard tongue, wah, 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 flying in and out through the smoke hole. Plain men come out of the ground. Thank you, Gary Snyder. Of course, I sometimes love to bring in things to do with the heart and love, relationships, and Dorian Laux, Laux, anti-lamentation. Regret nothing. Not the cruel novels you read to the end just to find out who killed the cook. Not the insipid movies you made that made you cry in the dark, in spite of your intelligence, your sophistication. Not the lover you left quivering in a hotel parking lot, the one you beat to the punchline, the door, or the one who left you in your red dress and shoes, the ones that crimped your toes. Don't regret those. Not the nights you called God names and cursed your mother, sunk like a dog in the living room couch, chewing your nails and crushed by loneliness. You were meant to inhale those smoky nights, over a bottle of flat beer, to sweep stuck onion rings across the dirty restaurant floor, to wear the frayed coat with its loose buttons, its pockets full of struck matches. You've walked those streets 1,000 times, and still you end up here. Regret none of it, not one of the wasted days you wanted to know nothing, when the lights from the carnival rides were the only stars you believed in, loving them for their uselessness, not wanting to be saved. You've traveled this far in the back of every mistake, ridden in dark-eyed and morose, but calm as a house after the TV set has been pitched out the upstairs window, harmless as a broken axe, emptied of expectation. Relax. Don't bother remembering any of it. Let's stop here under the lit sign on the corner and watch all the people walk by. Anti-Lamentation, Tori and Laux. Thank you for that. I have not read that of hers before. Afterglow by Ivor Gurney, who was a World War I poet, also in the military, British. Out of the smoke and dust of the little room, with tea talk loud and laughter of happy boys, I passed into the dusk. Suddenly the noise ceased with a shock, left me alone in the gloom, to wonder at the miracle hanging high, tangled in twigs, the silver crescent clear. Time passed from mind. Time died, and then we were once more at home together, you and I. The elms with arms of love wrapped us in shade, who watched the ecstatic west with one desire, one soul upwrapped, and still another fire consumed us, and our joy yet greater made. That Bach should sing for us, mix us in one, the joy of firelight and the sunken sun. Thank you, Ivor Gurney. Thank you very much. I was also going to mention a song that sprang to mind when I landed on the theme, and that's Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. Do you know that song? It's an old song. It actually dates back to the early 1930s. The Platters made it quite popular in the late 50s. But it was part of a show back in that day, and it was written by the great lyricist Otto Harbach and music by Jerome Kern. And of course many have played it. Especially I was listening to the other day to Coleman Hawkins playing it in instrumental. Yeah, but many have sung it. Harry Belafonte, Eartha Kitt, Serge Gainsbourg, Barbra Streisand, many others. So you may have some other song that you like that has to do with smoke. That might bring it back to mind right now. Smoke and fire. The smoke and fire of passion is never out of fashion. No, sir. Well, we have smoke as a signal of life. Yeah, and warm shelter. I spoke a little bit about that at the very opening. This is Théophile Gautier, translated by Norman Shapiro. Smoke. Over there, trees are sheltering. A hunchbacked hut, a slum, no more. Roof askew, walls and wainscoting falling away. Moss hides the door. Only one shutter hanging. But seeping over the windowsill like frosted breath, proof that this hut, this slum, is living, breathing still. Corkscrew of smoke. A wisp of blue escapes the hovel, whose soul it is, rises to God himself, and who receives the news and makes it his. Smoke. Thank you, Théophile Gautier. Yeah, that poem by Philip Levine. He worked in the steel mills, I believe in Detroit, and I came across a different poem from 1920 by Ellen Margaret Jansen. It's a longer poem. I'm just going to give us the very beginning of it. February 1920, Smoke Nights, and this is Smoke and Steel. Smoke of the fields in spring is one, smoke of the leaves in autumn another. Smoke of a steel mill roof or a battleship funnel, they all go up in a line with the smokestack, or they twist in the slow twist. If the north wind comes, they run to the south. If the west wind comes, they run to the east. By this sign all smokes know each other. Smoke of the fields in spring and leaves in autumn, smoke of the finished steel, chilled and blue. By the oath of work they swear, I know you. Hunted and hissed from the center, deep down long ago when God made us over. Deep down of the cinders we came from, you and I and our heads of smoke. Some of the smokes God dropped on the job, cross on the sky and count our years and sing in the secrets of our numbers. Sing their dawns and sing their evenings. Sing an old log fire song. You may put the damper up, you may put the damper down. The smoke goes up the chimney just the same. Smoke of a city sunset skyline. Smoke of a country dusk horizon. They cross on the sky and count our years. Thank you, Margaret Jansen. And from the Marginalian, on the poetic science of the aurora borealis, by Maria Popova, but it begins this way, this piece. On the evening of February 19th, 1852, a scientist at the New Haven station of the nascent telegraph witnessed something extraordinary. A blue line appeared upon the paper, which gradually grew darker and larger, until a flame of fire followed the pen and burned through a dozen thicknesses of the prepared paper. The paper was set on fire by the flame and produced considerable smoke. The current then subsided as gradually as it came on until it entirely disappeared, and was then succeeded by a negative current which bleached instead of colored the paper. This also gradually increased until, as with the positive current, it burned the paper and then subsided to be followed by the positive current. Well, this was all about the early telegraph, was because it was an electrochemical technology, using a passing current through chemically coated paper to record a message from a faraway station. And I just love the fact that something that was a signaling device involves smoke, another signaling device. Yeah. And scientists knew of only one phenomenon in nature that corresponds to this pattern, and that's the aurora borealis, hence the connection. I had mentioned, by the way, sea smoke. And if you don't know what that is, it's quite marvelous. Sea smoke, also known as frost smoke or steam fog, it's formed when very cold air moves over warmer water. And you find it a lot in the Arctic sea smoke, forming over small patches of open water in sea ice. And it has a turbulent appearance and may form spiraling columns, sometimes as high as 100 feet high. Yeah, imagine being a sailor in the day and you couldn't see over that. Well, back on the Yucatan coast for another moment, winter of 1999, at day's end, one day, there were always endlessly inviting shows of clouds for me, but one of them called to mind fine cigars and their smoke. And this poem came to me, Las Bocanadas, Clouds of Smoke. Of an evening, usually approaching cocktail hour, when a good wind comes up, the clouds over Cozumel roll into robustos and Churchills, imperials, and doubled coronas, light themselves with the first flames of sunset, and puff off to Havana. Las Bocanadas. I know an old-time fishketeer, as I call them, fishermen here, fishes other than the winter in Quanakatong Beach, Weekapaug, here in Rhode Island. This was September of 2020. I was talking with him, and he told this story, and I just couldn't resist writing a poem about it. Gave it to him. This is for Doug, the man with the lightning rod, referring, of course, to his fishing pole. Electrifying the fish with his in and out, back and forth polarities. A man who once could blow smoke, yes, smoke, out of his ear, the right ear. Who traveled from time to time in submarines black and sleek, who wades early and lightly now in the ocean, watching for sparks of silver scales inside each day's waving waters. Out to Doug. This is from the BuddhaBeeApiary.com. BuddhaBeeApiary.com. Why do beekeepers use smoke? It's an essential tool that keeps bees and beekeepers safe. We're often asked, how do beekeepers avoid getting stung? In short, it's by smoking their hives. They use smoke to keep bees calm during hive inspections. When bees sense danger, they release an alarm pheromone called isopentyl acetate from a gland near their stingers. This chemical wafts through the air and alerts other bees to be ready to attack. Smoking a beehive masks this pheromone, allowing the beekeeper to safely perform a hive inspection. There you have it. And actually, interestingly, I also went looking around for what they use in those to fuel them. And Wikipedia said many types of fuel can be used in a smoker, including Hessian fabric, burlap, Hessian fabric, didn't know it was referred to that way, pine needles, corrugated cardboard, paper egg cartons, and rotten wood or herbs. Experiments have shown that smoke from pellets of the dried female hop flower, Humulus lupulus, contain the sedative lupulin, particularly effective. Wonder if we smoked that or burned that, we would be sedated. I'm now wondering about this. Okay, all right. I'm going to save that one. Okay. There's a smoke prayer that Frank S. Gordon wrote back in time quite a bit. I don't have the year, but I know it was quite a long time back. Gold in the Desert, Morning Hymn, the Smoke Prayer. In the land of the Dakotas, the voice of a youth crying, as it were a thin blue smoke ascending, great mystery, do thou partake of this food and still be gracious. Make it unto me sinew of flesh, sinew of arm, and the strong heart. Thou who paintest the mountains black, behold, they stand as flint. Thou who singest to the four winds, and lo, they dancing, sing. Partake of this food, and be thou gracious. O great sheet of blue sky, see me standing here, hear me crying here. I have heard the voice of my fathers, I have recited the deeds of my fathers, I have done the commands of my fathers. Be thou gracious, unto me give the heart of my fathers. My limbs, they are the deer's, I have not smoked the fragrant plant, my limbs, they are the brown deer's. I have not eaten the broth of weakness. My limbs, they are the fleet brown deer's. I have not sung the love song. O thou holy and great mystery, be thou gracious. Give unto me the heart of flint. I have spoken with the straight tongue. Give unto me the heart of deer. I have spoken with my timber brothers. Give unto me the heart of flowers. I have spoken with the sprig of sage. Thou who hidest the nest of the moon, give unto me the heart of eagle, that my people may find me filled in my days of fasting, that my enemy find me valiant in my days of combat, that thou find me reverent before the east wind, before the south wind, before thee, O sheet of blue sky. Behold, I stand, my face uplifted, my hands upraised, my soul in nakedness before thee, as it were a smoke ascending. Thank you so much for that poem. I never read that before. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, now coming into our last musings and sharings for this week, for this time together. Dunya Mikhail, and translated by Karim James Abu Zaid. Another planet. I have a special ticket to another planet beyond this earth. A comfortable world and beautiful. A world without much smoke. Not too hot and not too cold. The creatures are gentler there, and the governments have no secrets. The police are non-existent. There are no problems and no fights. And the schools don't exhaust their students with too much work, for history has yet to start, and there's no geography and no other languages. And even better, the war has left its R behind and turned into love. So the weapons sleep beneath the dust, and the planes pass by without shelling the cities, and the boats look like smiles on the water. All things are peaceful and kind on the other planet beyond this earth. But still, I hesitate to go alone. Another planet. Thank you, Dunya Mikhail, from her collection, The Iraqi Nights. I don't know the collection, but I may look that up. Walt Whitman, from The Song of Myself. The smoke of my own breath. Echoes, ripples, buzzed whispers, love root, silk thread, crotch, and vine. My respiration and inspiration, the beating of my heart, the passing of blood and air through my lungs, the sniff of green leaves and dry leaves, and of the shore and dark-colored sea rocks, and of hay in the barn, the sound of the belched words of my voice loosed to the eddies of the wind, a few light kisses, a few embraces, a reaching round of arms, the play of shine and shade on the trees as the supple boughs wag, the delight alone or in the rush of the streets or along the fields and hillsides, the feeling of health, the full noon trill, the song of me rising from bed and meeting the sun. Have you reckoned 1,000 acres much? Have you reckoned the earth much? Have you practiced so long to learn to read? Have you felt so proud to get at the meaning of poems? Stop this day and night with me, and you shall possess the origin of all poems. You shall possess the good of the earth and sun. There are millions of suns left. You shall no longer take things at second or third hand, nor look through the eyes of the dead, nor feed on the spectres in books. You shall not look through my eyes either, nor take things from me. You shall listen to all sides and filter them from yourself. Thank you, Walt Whitman. The smoke of my own breath. Beautiful expression. I mentioned smoke screens and the questions I was asking, and as we know, there's something that hides the truth about someone's intentions. It's also an artificial cloud of smoke that's used to hide the movements or positions of soldiers from the enemy. So, what smoke screens do we have going on in the world around us, or in any relationships? Let's remove all the smoke screens and smoke anywhere and everywhere we can, my friends. Encourage you to do that if you've done it. Kurt Vonnegut said, "If I was ever to have a child, this is what I'd tell it. Child, I'd say, don't ever mess with time. Keep now, and then. And if you ever get lost in thick smoke, child, set still till it clears. Set still till you can see where you are and where you've been and where you're going, child." Kurt Vonnegut. Next to last, this is a poem I've read around different themes, different shows over time, but it certainly fits this one. November 2019, it was for the Hopewell Tour des Arts in Hopewell, New Jersey, where I was delighted to put on a show within their larger event. So next to last, Around the Fire, where the light dances on a circle of faces, where the heat toddies the spirits and all close-gathered bodies, where, since epochs and eras long before Native Americans honored the four winds under new and full moons, before the Zoroastrians lit the great fire at Yazda that glows on millennia later, before the Druids, Bedouins, even before Apollo and Vulcan, Ogun, Fuji, Agni and Granus, Pele and Mishquatl, when early man made fires in the green dark hearts of forests, in the open mouths of sheltering caves, where across all human time voices, songs, music, drum beats, and heartbeats rose with the sparks, cinders, and smoke into the sky, toward the sun by day, toward the distant, listening stars by night, of lilting kinds, offering, celebrating, and other anciently sacred, wordful and wordless kinds, where some of our own ancestors once, surely, stood or sat, meditated, chanted, or danced with wild abandon, naked or painted, or hatted and coated, till the last of the embers died out, gave way to the great silence and stillness of the earth around them, of the vast and mysterious world folded and unfolding around them, where we can gather, go further in, invite and embrace our own kindling, crackling, blazing from the center of our beings. Let forth our own fire to reach and touch, light and warm every circle of our lives, our living, all our making, all our loving. Around the fire. Happy to send a copy of that to you if you write me. And I'm happy to also send you a recording of it if you like. Well, last for now, until we're together again over these airwaves. This is from the spring of 2018, from the debut of my immersive exhibition of theater on paper called Behind the Curtain. The Genie Unbottled. After you uncork him, and he appears in a serpentine of white smoke, before he grants you your greatest wishes, take your time in the wishing, in the musing on what you most desire in your life, what your life most desires of you. Then ask away. Thank you again, friends, for leaning in, thinking and feeling in, for taking in all this poetic and metaphoric smoke together. I'd be delighted if you shared this or other show links with friends or pointed them this way. I'd also be very glad to have your comments or contemplations from listening, including your experience of this show on smoke signals. Likewise, any contribution you might like to make of appreciation for these weekly shows that I create to illuminate and enliven you. You can do so by Venmo to Fivefold, Fivefold, at pipeline.com, or by PayPal to the same email, or you can simply mail a check to me to P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island 02891, or donate through my site, thepoetorialist.com, by way of the Donate tab. Is there some yet covered theme you'd like to see a broadcast on? If so, email me, colin@thepoetisphere.com. And if you're new to the broadcast, at times patrons can privately host or sponsor me as a working poet in residence in the U.S. or beyond to create a new flight of poetic art and dedicate it to them. Email me to explore that. Meanwhile, you can hear all the broadcasts online on YouTube and elsewhere eventually on the Floating Poetry playlist. You can also explore, as a visitor or subscriber by the month or longer, the oasis of ease, uplift, and inspiration I'm guiding, the poetisphere.com. I invite you to go anytime there to explore. There's a tasting menu, we can call that, explore menu, where you'll find openings and vitalizings from micro-experiences to deeper conversations to life contemplations. All this in a community of possibilitarians. I'm also making month-long and year-long subscriptions possible for the holidays for you, my listeners, at a much-reduced membership using the code GLADTIDINGS, all one word, GLADTIDINGS, Glad Tidings, whether for yourself or to give as a uniquely special gift to one or others. Meanwhile, I hope as always you'll lean in here soon again. Until then, dear listeners, keep your eyes and imaginations out for smoke signals of all kinds in your days. There are ever many to notice, to witness, and be touched, galvanized, or brought to awareness by. And may all of us be able to see where we are and need to be in our world when the big smoke upon so much of it clears. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.